Ever pondered about the journey of wheat from the field to your plate? Let's take a moment to delve into the fascinating process of wheat farming, starting from sowing seeds in the field to the harvest. It all begins with the preparation of the soil. This step is crucial as it sets the stage for the growth of the wheat. The soil is tilled, ensuring it's loose and aerated, allowing for optimal root penetration. Fertilizers rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are added to provide the necessary nutrients. Once the soil is ready, it's time for sowing the seeds. Timing, as they say, is everything. For wheat, the ideal time to sow is in the fall, just after the first frost. This allows the wheat seeds to germinate before winter sets in. The wheat then lies dormant under the snow, awaiting the warmth of spring to spur its growth. As spring arrives, the wheat plants spring to life, covering the fields with a lush carpet of green. The plants grow and develop, reaching their peak in the heat of summer. The heads of the wheat, heavy with grain, turn a beautiful golden hue. This is the signal that it's time for harvest. The harvest is a symphony of activity. Combines sweep through the fields, separating the wheat kernels from the stalks. These kernels, also known as wheat berries, are the precious result of months of patient waiting and careful nurturing. They are then collected and stored in silos, protected from moisture and pests, waiting for the next part of their journey. But our wheat berries aren't ready for the mill just yet. They undergo a process known as conditioning, where they are cleaned and tempered. This involves soaking the wheat in water, which toughens the outer layer or bran and softens the inner endosperm. This makes the milling process more efficient, ensuring that we get the finest quality flour. So that's how wheat goes from seed to harvest. But how does it turn into flour? Now that we have harvested wheat, how does it become the flour we use in our kitchens? This transformation happens through the milling process, a journey that begins with cleaning. The harvested wheat is thoroughly cleaned to remove any impurities, ensuring that only the best grains make it to the next step. Next comes conditioning, where the clean wheat is moistened to soften the outer bran layer. This step makes the grinding process easier and more efficient. The conditioned wheat is then ground, breaking it down into its essential parts, the endosperm, bran, and germ. The ground wheat is then sifted, separating the endosperm from the bran and germ. The endosperm gives us white, all-purpose flour, while the bran and germ provide us with whole wheat flour. So, whether you're making a fluffy white loaf or a hearty whole grain bread, it's all thanks to the intricate milling process. With our flour ready, let's move on to the exciting part, bread making. What goes into making a loaf of bread at home? Well, let's unravel this culinary mystery together. First off, we need a few basic ingredients. The backbone of any bread recipe is flour. In this case, we'll use our freshly milled wheat flour. Flour is the structure of our bread, giving it that satisfying chewiness we all love. Next up, we have water. Water hydrates the flour, activating the gluten, which gives our bread its elasticity. It's the key to transforming our powdery flour into a workable dough. Then, we have yeast. This tiny organism is the secret behind the rise in our bread. As it feeds on the sugars in our flour, it releases carbon dioxide, causing our dough to inflate and create those lovely air pockets. We also need a bit of salt. Salt not only enhances the flavor of our bread, but it also strengthens the gluten structure and controls the yeast activity, ensuring our bread doesn't rise too quickly. Next, while not always necessary, a bit of sugar or honey can offer a touch of sweetness and help our yeast work a bit faster. Now, let's move on to the preparation of our dough. Start by combining the flour, yeast, salt, and if you're using it, sugar or honey. Once these are well mixed, gradually add in your water, stirring as you go. As the ingredients come together, you'll notice it starts to form a dough. Once we have our dough, it's time to knead. Kneading is essential as it develops the gluten, giving our bread its structure. You'll want to knead until your dough is smooth and elastic, which usually takes about 10 minutes by hand. And there you have it. Your bread dough is ready for the next step, which is proofing. But we'll get to that in the next scene. With our dough prepared, we're one step closer to our homemade bread. Our dough is ready. Now, what's next? The next step in our bread-making journey is shaping the dough. This process is more than just creating an aesthetically pleasing form. Shaping is crucial for the final texture and crumb structure of your bread. Gently deflate the dough, then fold it onto itself several times to create tension on its surface. You can shape it into a classic loaf, a round boule, or any other shape that tickles your fancy. Once shaped, it's time for the dough to take its final rest before baking. This is known as the final proofing stage. During this time, the dough will rise one last time, doubling in size. This usually takes about an hour, but the exact timing can vary depending on the temperature and humidity of your kitchen. Now comes the baking. Preheat your oven to a high temperature, usually around 450 degrees Fahrenheit. This high heat is essential to achieve the perfect crust and crumb. Some bakers even create steam in their ovens by placing a tray of water on the bottom rack, which helps the bread rise and develop a beautiful, shiny crust. The baking time can vary depending on the shape and size of your loaf, but a good starting point is about 25 to 35 minutes. You'll know your bread is done when it has a golden brown crust, and when tapped on the bottom it sounds hollow. After baking, resist the temptation to slice into your bread immediately. Cooling is a crucial step that is often overlooked. As the bread cools, the residual heat continues to cook the inside, and the steam inside redistributes evenly throughout the loaf. This process helps to set the final texture and flavor of the bread. So, give your bread at least an hour to cool before slicing into it. And there you have it, a homemade loaf of bread from homegrown wheat. The process may be a bit time-consuming, but the satisfaction of baking your own bread from wheat you've grown yourself is absolutely worth it. Enjoy the fruits of your labor, and happy baking. So, you see, the journey of wheat from the field to your plate is quite an adventure. It's a tale that unfolds across seasons, from the sowing of seeds in fertile soil to the golden fields of harvest ripe with grain. Each stage is a testament to the wonder of nature and the industriousness of human hands. We've walked through these stages together, beginning with the sowing process. Remember how we discussed the importance of choosing the right type of wheat for your climate and soil, and how crucial it is to maintain the right planting depth and spacing. These little details can make a world of difference when it comes to achieving a successful harvest. Then we moved on to the harvest itself. We explored how to identify when your wheat is ready for harvest and the methods you can use to gather your grain. We discussed traditional scything, modern combines, and everything in between. From there, we dove into the milling process. By grinding your harvested wheat, you can produce your own flour. We learned about the different types of mills available, from stone mills to roller mills, and the different types of flour you can produce. Remember, the type of flour you choose can greatly affect the taste and texture of your bread. Next, we ventured into the kitchen to start the bread-making process. We covered the key ingredients you'll need to transform your flour into a loaf of bread. We discussed the importance of yeast, salt, and water, and how these elements interact to create that airy, soft texture we all love in a good slice of bread. Finally, we delved into the baking and cooling process. We learned about the different baking methods, the importance of preheating your oven, and how to let your bread cool properly to maintain its texture and taste. Through this knowledge, we can appreciate the effort and skill that goes into each loaf of bread, from the field to our tables. It's a journey that homesteaders and those interested in self-sufficiency can embark on, bringing a sense of accomplishment and connection to the food we consume. Next time you enjoy a slice of bread, remember the journey it took to get to your plate, and remember, you too can be part of that journey.